I'm Franka Baly. Oh, that's a great question. I'm lots of things. I am obviously the CEO of FBUX Consulting, but I'm also a mom. I have two boys, a sister, last of nine. I'm a West Indian or an immigrant. Came to the United States in 1986 after growing up in the US Virgin Islands, but I was originally born in Trinidad and Tobago. And so, yeah, like many people, came to this country to further my education and then ended up staying and making a life for myself here. I always tease everybody and say I'm a movie savant. I remember the most strange facts about movies. I can probably, if I know a movie, I can probably tell you the actors in it. I can probably tell you the director of it. It's weird. I tease my family. I'm kind of like a movie savant, but I'm not really. But I do know a lot of trivia around movies and facts. I absolutely adore music of all types. I'm a water person, so I love the ocean. One of these people that is not afraid of the ocean and loves being near water as much as possible. I am not afraid of heights, but I don't like the feeling of falling. So even though I will jump out of things and fall on the water slide, I don't like the sensation of falling. So maybe that's why I love the ocean so much. I like the feeling of floating, prefer to feeling of falling. And I love being outdoors. I love anything in the outdoors except for woods and where things can eat me, like bears, things like that. Not so much, but I love hiking and hearing the birds sing and being out in nature a lot. I always say that UX is not something that I found, but UX found me, because I kind of stumbled upon it really early in my career. My first job out of college was definitely not UX. It was working in the medical industry. I worked at MD Anderson Cancer Hospital and part of the patient advocacy or the patient relations department. And the only reason I left that job that I loved so much was because while I was there, my mother was diagnosed with breast cancer and she ultimately passed away. And she was kind of my rock. And it triggered me to continue to work at that job. So I started looking for something. And at that time, jobs were in the newspaper. And so the Houston Chronicle had an ad for a job at Compaq Computer Corporation for a human factors engineer. And I actually didn't know what it was, but when I read the job description, I had a lot of the experience, research background. I was able to write very well, being able to have a good understanding of statistics. And when you have a degree in social science, those are all things that you spend a lot of time doing, writing and interpreting results and using statistics. So I applied and they brought me in for an interview. And I hit it off really well with the manager and she brought me in. And I think what made me so great at that position was my personality. Very outgoing, very friendly. I knew how to make people feel at ease. The work that I had been doing at MD Anderson had really prepared me to be a really effective researcher in the human factors engineering group at Compaq, which is now, they were sold to HP many years ago. So technically they're now HP. But it was a wonderful training ground. And I worked with some of the smartest people. A lot of them were doctors in cognitive psychology or had degrees in ergonomics. And so I learned a lot about ergonomics and how to process information, how the brain processes information. Because I worked in a computer company, I also had access to a lot of the latest technology. And so my first foray into working in tech was that job, which I stayed in for over 7 years and really cut my teeth and learned as much as I can about user experience. User experience came of age while I was working at Compaq because the internet wasn't really a big thing back then in the early 90s. And neither was Google didn't exist. Internet Explorer hadn't officially launched, but we were partners with Microsoft and some of those other big tech companies. So I got to see a lot of those technologies early and test them in the research labs. So I would say, user experience really is something that I kind of grew into and grew with as the industry has evolved. And I'm super excited that I get to go into this next generation and even mentor the next generation of user experience designers within my company or whoever, encounters me online. So I'm very excited about where the field is going, and I hope that I get to see what it morphs into next. FBUX Consulting is not my first company. It's like my fifth maybe, but as far as web development and design, it's like my second. I had started my first company back in 2000 called Reemergence. And so FBUX is kind of a new iteration of Reemergence that I had for about 11 years. And this time around, I learned so much from that first company that I really wanted to be able to do more development in software. As I grew and my skills grew, I wanted to be able to serve a variety of clients. In Reemergence, I mostly serve small businesses and growing medium-sized businesses. This time around, I really leaned heavily into my expertise as a user experience designer. And that's kind of the sweet spot that I play in, where everything that I approach is from the perspective of creating a full experience for our customers. So rather than, even though we may eventually be asked to build you a website or design something for your brand, we never approach it by just looking at that one thing. We look at the totality of the experience that we create for your users. And so we'll touch your website and your social media presence. We may ask to see your printing. We want to make sure your logos look right and they're the right format for the different ways that people engage with your brand. So our goal is to build a relationship with the companies that we serve, not just for one time, but for the companies, if they're small business, as they scale to a bigger company. If they're a big company, we want to make sure that your consistency and your platform is there. And if you're a government agency that works with us, we want to help you to incorporate some of the best practices that we know work across an enterprise, because we've learned from so many different aspects, and we can take that knowledge to help those government entities as well. So we're excited about, what we can do for our companies and continuing to grow. And as we move into this new era of Web 3.0, we're really excited about being able to create applications and new experiences for our customers. So we're really excited to engage with you, and we hope that, we get an opportunity to work with lots of companies that are looking to create that full and consistent user experience. I don't know if I would call myself a tech expert. I love what technology can do for you. I don't spend all my days reading about everything tech. What I do know is that technology can really make people's lives a lot easier when it's done well. And I think as a user experience designer, one of the things I try to do is to make it as easy for people to interact with the technology that they're using as possible, by paying attention to the interface, paying attention to the things that they interact with, so that it doesn't become a blocker, because there's a lot of fear and anxiety sometimes, especially as you get older, around using technology, and it can be something that you're afraid of. But, I think my job is kind of like an evangelist, to go in and gather information, to speak to the user about their fears and their motivation and concerns, and really kind of understand what they're trying to do, and to figure out how I can make it easy for them to accomplish what they want to do. So I love that aspect of my job. But I think one of the biggest lessons that I've learned is to be a good listener. That, if you listen very well, people will tell you, and not just listening with your ears, but listening with your eyes and really paying attention. people will really tell you and sometimes show you what they need you to do. Sometimes, and this may go back to a Steve Jobs quote, well, don't listen to the user. But I think sometimes people are not able to really articulate what they want. So it's important to really pay attention and watch. Sometimes you go into an office and they're telling you something, but when you observe how their laptop is situated, you can pick up a lot of things. So we're, in a sense, researchers. We're looking at the world around us and trying to make sure that it fits with how a person wants to navigate it. I think the other lesson I learned is to trust my instincts really well. I think it's important when you go into an environment, sometimes you can listen to what, the developers or sales or marketing or what everybody else has told you to do. But while you're in there meeting with people and interacting with them, you kind of get a gut and an instinct about what may be the right path for you to follow to create something. And I think it's important to trust that and to trust yourself enough. We all suffer from some degree of imposter syndrome, but you're in the room with the people that are giving you the answers. It's important for you to believe and to trust that instinct that tells you this is the way that you should solve the problem for them. And I think staying curious, no one has all the answers. And I think sometimes you're in rooms where people expect you as the user experience designer to know the answer or the right way to do something. But the thing that I would say is always to say, you know what, I know a lot. Yes, I'm a user experience designer, but in this instance, I don't know the right way. It's okay to not have all the answers and say, you know what, I'm going to find out, because I'm as curious as you are to find out if I have the right answer. And I want to validate this for us to make sure that I'm on the right path. I think I am, but I'm not 100% sure. And I guess it's not just being curious, but being willing to say, you know what, I don't know. And it's okay not to know and not to have all the answers. And to be comfortable with not always trying to be the smartest person in the room, I guess. So those are some lessons that I've learned. I would definitely say that, user experience is not just for tech. So if you're not interested in working in a technology company per se, user experience is on everything. Everything has an interface. So, don't feel like it's the only place you can work is inside of a technology company. You can work inside of a clothing company, a fashion brand. You can work in a perfumery, because now every single brand has some type of web-based presence or interface, mobile app, or something that you can work on to help expand that presence, global impact and footprint. So I want to say that first and foremost, because I don't want people to get the impression that the only place they can work as a UX designer is in tech. That's not true. There's lots of jobs in lots of industries that require someone with an expertise in UX design. I think as a woman, it is probably one of the best things you could do, because tech has not had a lot of women in these spaces for a long time. I'm starting to see a lot more women go into it, but still there are places and rooms that I walk into that I'm still the only girl. And so there's lots and lots of opportunity for women to really get involved in technology. And I say, become really great at communicating what you think in writing, and your ability to speak and articulate is really going to help you when you're in those rooms and they need a different voice, not a dissenting voice, but a different voice, that you need to be able to find your voice and speak up and not be afraid to share your knowledge and share your perspective. And I think that's really important for women to know. I was never afraid in those rooms to use my voice. I found my voice, and I was given permission in a lot of early days in my career, because there were other women in the human factors group that I worked in that encouraged me to find my voice and to use my voice. And sometimes just by the sheer fact that you're the one that did the research, they need to listen to you anyway. So I think that really will make you feel more comfortable. Just do everything you want in your field, with excellence. Learn your craft really well. And like some of the books that I've read, there's one in particular that says, be so good that they can't ignore you, that your work will shine through for itself. Thank you so much for allowing me to share what, I feel and love about this wonderful field that has done so much for me.